Thirdly, we reported murder, incitement to murder, and conspiracy to murder under the Offences Against the Person Act, 1861. And finally, we reported conspiracy to commit genocide, a crime against humanity, and war crimes under the Criminal Law Act, 1977. In reporting the crimes to the Met, we focus mainly on genocide. But there is a reason for that, and that is that in America, the one law that George Bush has broken is the Genocide Convention Implementation Act, known as the Proxmire Act. And if Americans want to arrest and charge George Bush, then the way they can do it is under their own legislation, the Proxmire Act. But we thought that if in this country we make sure that Blair faces and answers charges of genocide in court, that will provide a real benefit to the rest of the world in trying to get Bush and Cheney and the rest of them into court to answer for their crimes. Now, there's a lot of questions about genocide. Everybody has different understandings of what it is. But it's very important to go back to the legal definitions. The legislation lays out what genocide is in law. And in particular, in this country, there's a statutory instrument, the International Criminal Court Act 2001, Elements of Crimes Regulations. And this lays out that a crime of genocide by killing will have been committed if, 1, the perpetrator killed one or more persons, 2, such person or persons belong to a particular national, ethnic, racial, or religious group, 3, the perpetrator intended to destroy in whole or in part that national, ethnic, racial, or religious group as such, and 4, the conduct took place in the context of a manifest pattern of similar conduct directed against that group, or was conduct that could itself effect such destruction. Now, we provided police with incontrovertible evidence that each of the 4 elements of genocide by killing is present in the case of the Iraq War. When the police questioned us on whether we had evidence of intent, we quoted a number of examples, and I just want to bring out one that was one of the ones that we used. We had evidence of intent when we quoted there was a statement made by Tony Blair when he was going around Iraq just before he left office. And it comes from Martin Bell's recent book, and it relates to a conversation he had with a group of soldiers during his farewell visit. They were talking about the hard and dark side of soldiering and the lives and limbs that were lost. And his horrific response was, "So we're killing more of them than they kill us. You're getting back out there after them. It's brilliant, actually." Now that's the sort of statement which proves that Tony Blair intended to kill Iraqis. In the secret legal device of March 7, 2003, it very clearly shows that both Blair and Goldsmith knew 2 weeks before the war started that if they went to war, they would be committing the crimes of murder and aggression. Now that's fundamental, and the questions we asked were, why weren't ministers and MPs informed before the debate in Parliament so that they would be prosecuted for murder and aggression if they voted in favour of war? I'm certain that at least some MPs would have voted the other way if they'd known that before they went into the debate. Particularly that they would be personally criminally liable for murder and a crime of aggression if they went ahead. By the way, it's important to note that a crime of aggression, as described in the secret legal advice by Lord Goldsmith, is the same crime. It's known as a crime against peace now since 1950. It's the same crime for which Germany's leaders were convicted and hanged at Nuremberg in 1946. They invaded 11 countries. So where do we go from here? How do we progress this movement to hold our leaders to account in court for their crimes? The first thing we must do is, with one child being killed every hour, our first priority must be to stop the killing and stop the use of armed force. It's illegal. We must force Parliament to overrule the government and immediately cancel all active service orders to the armed forces. How we're going to do that, I don't know, but with publicity and with your help, we can bring real pressure to bear on our Parliament to force our government to uphold the law. Secondly, every time an Iraqi or Afghani citizen is killed or injured by the violent actions of coalition forces, one or more of the 14 listed crimes is committed. We must inform every British citizen and every European citizen of this fact. And we must tell them about the laws of war and draw their attention to their personal criminal liability for the world's worst crimes. Thirdly, we also aim to arrest and detain all those responsible for war crimes and to persuade Parliament to set up a War Crimes Commission to ensure successful prosecution. It's clear through studying the legislation that every adult in Britain, by the way, who has paid tax to the government since the war started, committed the crime of conduct ancillary to genocide, conduct ancillary to crimes against humanity, conduct ancillary to war crimes. These are 3 criminal offences under Section 52 of the International Criminal Court Act. It's also clear that every resident is also complicit in a crime against peace, which is a criminal offence under the Nuremberg Principles. For those who are concerned, they may need to realise that ignorance of the law is no excuse. The fact that we do not know that law is no excuse. However, the courts will often show leniency if offenders can prove that as soon as they found out about their personal criminal liability, they took action. They renounced their support for the crimes. They've halted all taxes and financial assistance to the government and joined in national actions to halt the killing and arrest the killers. If you do that, the courts will look on your behaviour with leniency. This massacre of Iraqis and Afghanis is without doubt the worst atrocity in British history. I cannot think of another occasion in 1,000 years when we have murdered men, women and children for no reason whatsoever. It is an appalling atrocity and we must do something about it. I think the reason why it has been allowed to go this far is there is a real evil at the heart of the British government. And I say that in the legal sense and not in the moral sense. Also, the British public tend to be, there's a great sense of apathy and indifference, and that it's somebody else's problem all the time. But it's everybody's problem. It's our problem. We have to do something about it. So if we want to get back to the path of peace, justice and the rule of law, each of us will have to play a part. So, please, do what you can to stop the killing, report criminals to the police, and hold the killers to account in court for their crimes. That way we will end our involvement in war. Thank you.